So today in class, we talked about using estimation to either check an answer or to get a sense of what a reasonable answer would look like when it comes to working with decimals. And for that matter, we'll be using the same strategies of estimation when we get to operations with fractions. But for now, we're going to limit our discussion over the next several days with decimals. The one thing we should remember is that all the rules that we've used for integers when it comes to adding, specifically the scoreboard method, and when it comes to subtraction, keep change opposite, those rules work for any type of rational number. And decimals, as we've learned at the beginning of the year, are rational numbers. So if we have subtraction, we can convert it to addition with keep change opposite. And once we have addition, we can make use of the scoreboard to come up with our answer. Beyond that, what's really important for us to understand is that we have to recognize the place value of the digits in a number. So when I look at 8.375, I know because 8 is 1 to the left of 0, I'm sorry, of the decimal point, that's my ones place. And because 3 is 1 to the right of the decimal, that's my tenths. And then the 7 is the hundredths. And the 5 is the thousandths. Now, when I look at the 3.75 that's being added, we know the 3 is the ones place because it's 1 to the left of the decimal, and the 7 is the tenths place. So the reason why we have to remember to line up the decimal points in our numbers is because we have to make sure we're adding digits that have the same place value. So if we were to set this up in an incorrect way, you don't have to write this down right now because this is incorrect. If you were to do this and set things up kind of down the right margin, then you'd be trying to add a 7 in 3.7, that's 7 tenths, with a 5 in 8.375, that's actually 5 thousandths. And that doesn't work. So we're not going to do that. What we are going to do is to make sure that we use the scoreboard, that we line up our decimal points, and that we add our numbers in the respective columns, as long as the signs are the same. So I have a positive and I have a negative. My numbers are both positive, so I'm going to write 8.375 on the positive side. And being mindful to line up my decimal points, so there's my decimal point. The 3 is 1 to the left. The 7 is 1 to the right. That now allows me to add these two numbers together based on the place values of the digits. Now, what a lot of people like to do as well is to make the numbers the same length. So you notice there's nothing after the 7 in the hundredths or the thousandths place. There's nothing preventing us from putting zeros there, so that now the numbers are the same length. And now when we're ready to add these numbers, we just simply, because they're both positive, we just simply add our columns down. And don't forget about the decimal point that carries as well. So I'm going to put that in there now. So we know 5 plus 0 is 5. 7 plus 0 is 7. 7 plus 3, whoops, something's going wrong there. 7 plus 3 is 10, but I need to carry. Okay. And then 8 plus 1 is 9, plus 3 more is 12. So I should get 12.075 as my final correct answer. If I want to check that with my estimate, well, here's my estimated check. I'm just going to do that down here. And don't forget, we did that by way of rounding these decimal numbers to the nearest integer. So 5 and up, round up, or 5 and above, you round up. Below 5, you round down. So 8.375 we know would be rounded down to 8. 3.75 would be rounded up to 4. And we'd be adding those. So we're getting an answer that we're expecting to be around 12, and we sure enough get an answer that's around 12, just a little bit more. Okay, so we can have confidence in that answer. So let's do another one. We have, in this case, two negative numbers that need to be added. So we're going to set up our scoreboard, being mindful to put both numbers on the negative side. So 3.625 is negative. 4.75 is also negative. Again, if you like the idea of making the numbers the same length, you can feel free to put that extra zero in where it's missing in the thousandths place of negative 4.75. Let's also make note, as we've always done with the scoreboard, of circling the negative sign, since we know that will be the sign of our final answer. And because the numbers are on the same side, we can just add our numbers down. So 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. Nothing to carry yet. 7 plus 6 is 13. There's our decimal point. Well, because it was 13, we carry the 1. 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 1 is 8. So we should be all set. Well, let's see. If I double check it through estimating, negative 3.625, that's more than negative 3.5, so that's going to round to the next integer, negative 4. Negative 4.75 is going to round up to the next nearest integer, negative 5, and we're adding those. So we're looking for an answer roughly in the negative 9 range. Oh, look at what we noticed. We realized that we might have added correctly, but we forgot our negative sign right there. So let's see, negative 8.375. Does that seem reasonable? Well, we said we're going to be in the ballpark of negative 9. When I look at the fact that I rounded both numbers up, then I can, use some common sense and realize that negative 9 is going to be an overestimate because both numbers were rounded up. So we should have confidence in that answer. So we're going to do this one last time, but we're going to apply it to an expression. So here we're going to be asked to write an algebraic expression. And since we've been dealing with addition only today, I think I want to make it clear that we're going to write using or use addition, okay? So we may be adding negatives here, and that's okay. That's going to be consistent with what we're trying to accomplish with the notes. So we're going to write an expression, then we're going to actually solve the problem and use estimation to check. So the problem says the price of a Google stock fell 3.25 points today. Now we should realize that falling means that you're moving in a negative direction. So that's like a negative 3.25. Later in the day, it fell another 4.875. So once again, we're realizing that's a negative movement in the price, negative 4.875. It wants to know how much did the stock fall during the day. It's essentially asking how much did it fall in total. So if we fell a negative amount, or if we fell one amount and we fell another, then it makes sense that we would just be finding the total by adding those together. So negative 3.25 plus negative 4.875 should tell us how much it fell during the day. So we can set up our scoreboard, negative and positive. We can put our two numbers in, lining up the decimal points. And again, we can put that extra filler 0 in this case in the thousandths place, so that we can make each number look the same length. We're going to add the numbers because they're in the same column, and remember, they are going to be negative as the final answer. So 5 plus 0 is 5. 7 plus 5 is 12, but we'll have to carry a 1. 8 plus 2, that's 10 plus the 1 is 11. There's our decimal point. Carry the 1. 4 plus 3, 7. Oh, don't forget the carried 1. That's 8. So it looks like in total it fell 8.125 points. So let's estimate. Let's see. Let's do an estimated check. And I'm going to just write that over here, estimated check. You could write it up above. Well, negative 3.25, is that more than negative 3.5? No. So we're going to round down to negative 3. Negative 4.875, that's more than 4.5. So that's going to round up, get further away from 0. So go to -5. And we'll add those together. So it seems reasonable that we're looking for a total loss of about 8 points. And that is most definitely in line with what our final answer is. So that's a quick review. Everything we've done today is what we're familiar with just through integers, specifically using the scoreboard to add numbers with the same signs. In addition to that, we were reminded of lining up the decimal points for decimal numbers so that we can add digits that carry the same place value. And to make things easier, we can put those zeros in there as a placeholder where there is no digit otherwise. And then we're just going to simply add the numbers and then use estimation as our check. So for tonight's homework, you're going to do the back side of this sheet. You'll have, I think 6 problems to do, and we'll check those in class tomorrow.